Hi and welcome to The Courageous Collective, the podcast where we celebrate diverse women who dare to do things differently. I'm Rupa Baradva, a copywriter and communication specialist. I work with women entrepreneurs to help them get clear on their brand messaging, and I help them become more visible to their target customers using PR.
And I'm Vardeep Edwards, founder of The Branding Fox, a design consultancy that supports women in business with their branding and design needs. After working in corporate roles, we both took the leap into self-employment and created our own businesses where our skills and experience could really shine. But something we both noticed was the lack of women that looked like us at events, on speaker panels and in the media.
Which is why we created the Courageous Collective podcast. This is our platform to celebrate and champion diverse women who are smashing it in their businesses. In each episode, we speak to a female founder about the story behind their business. We explore their inspirations, the challenges they faced and how they've dealt with them. And we talk about what they're yet to achieve.
Welcome to the Courageous Collective and enjoy today's episode. Hi and welcome back to the Courageous Collective, the podcast which celebrates and champions women of colour who dare to do things differently as creative business owners. Thank you for joining us today for episode 8. It's also our final guest interview of the series. We've been blown away by the conversations we've had with so many incredible women in our first series of this podcast. And we're planning a special wrap-up episode to share all the best bits from series 1. But back to today's episode. Our guest is Bhavnisha Parmar, an actor, voiceover artist and radio DJ. She's best known for her work in Doctor Who, playing Sonia Khan in series 11, 12 and 13 of the iconic show. She's also been featured in adverts, corporate films, web series, and has her own show on BBC Asian Network. Not only is Bhavnisha a natural in front of the camera, she's developed the technical skills too to manage her very own home studio, which looks very cool in the background there. Bhavnisha, we're so delighted to have you on our podcast today. It's great to meet you. Why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on. I didn't realise this was one of the last episodes. Pressure. No, thank you so much. That was great. Tell me a little bit about myself. You did a great job there. I mean, I started, I'd say, in the creative business about 10 years ago. That's when I kind of graduated and moved into doing acting. I am originally from Birmingham, so I moved across to London, left the Midlands, and pursued acting. And I went and studied a little bit further in London, and then I got myself an agent, like you kind of try to do when you leave, and I just built my way up from there. And I had a really great tutor at where I was studying drama, and they had a big kind of push on radio. And I didn't really know much about radio at the time. So I was kind of like all hands on deck, just wanting to know more about it. And that's kind of how I fell more into voiceover and radio. And I guess the contacts you build up along the way in the creative industry, everyone moves around. So yeah, I kind of built my career on, I'm looking back now and I've got so many friends from 10 years ago from when I graduated. So yeah, it was, it's been quite a journey. And that's that. Then, as you said, I'm a voiceover artist. I'm an actor. Haven't done as much acting since Doctor Who, more so because the voiceover work has really taken over, and also the radio presenting as well. So yeah, just trying to streamline everything at the moment.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Bhavnisha. I mean, to be on Doctor Who, how incredible and very cool is that? Was the plan then to always be an actor? I mean, was there any kind of pushback from anyone, or, like your parents, for example, or was it always the kind of dream?
It was, I'm not like the kind of person who would say, I've been doing it since I was 3, when you kind of have that, I was walking, talking, and then I was acting kind of thing. None of my parents, or even, when I say none of my parents, none of my family, brothers, sisters, nobody's like pursued anything like fully creative. So I was the first one. And I had no pushback at all. My parents were very much, is this going to make you happy? Is this something you really want to do? All right, go do it. Just do it with a 100%. Like, that's the main thing. Like, don't kind of half do it or give up halfway. Just, keep going. And I would always say, like, I suppose like kind of before I got married and like when you're living in the house, I feel like my parents were like my cheerleaders, my siblings, my cheerleaders. They're always like, yeah, you're doing this, you're doing that. So for me, it's always been, I wouldn't say easy, but having that support system, I think really helps. Like if you're always constantly getting pushback from maybe the community or your own family, it can all you have to have a lot of self-belief. So having other people believe in you just really, it definitely helped. And I think it's what kept me going and constantly going to auditions and moving to London and all sorts. So, yeah.
I think that's so interesting, isn't it, as well, how there wasn't anybody else in your community pursuing a creative line in industry? Because I had a similar experience. I think you as well, wasn't Reaper, I think. Yeah, so it's interesting that you still wanted to pursue that regardless and, you weren't sort of put off by that.
Yeah, I think at the beginning it was quite daunting because I feel like I had a lot of friends who had connections or who had their parents that were in the industry or they just knew people. So it felt like they were kind of it was already in their bones, as it were. So for me, it was kind of learning everything new. But I guess in retrospect, looking back, I'm kind of glad that I didn't have anything because I just kind of went in and did my own thing and I just kind of kept going until I found people I wanted to work with and things like that. And I think there was like, I don't know, like I feel like there was like a bit of a, like, I still feel that when I was kind of working at the beginning, I still feel that there weren't as many like kind of Asians. I wasn't seeing as many young Asians, but I remember like between like I guess the first 4 or 5 years when I was working, then a lot of people started coming into the industry. So I don't know whether there was a pivot for the Asian community at that time, but there was a time where I remember there were the same faces I was seeing all the time in auditions, and then next thing you know, there was a whole flurry of artists, and I think that helped with kind of the things that the BBC were doing. They were opening up writing opportunities and new opportunities for people. But yeah. I've kind of lost what you said at the beginning. I don't even know whether I answered your question or not. But yeah, it is interesting that I was the first kind of one. But I have to say, my sister's really creative. She's really good at art. My niece, my sister's little one, she's great at it. It's just, I guess maybe they didn't pursue it as a career. But there is creativity. Mm-hmm. My brother used to play like 3 instruments when he was younger. Wow. So everybody's kind of got something in there. But I think I just took the plunge to do it full time. Yeah.
So do you see yourself as a business owner?
I do. Yeah, I do now. I think if you ask me about, I don't know, say when I was a lot younger or when I was starting out, it was always just like, get to every audition and, be seen and be connected and all that kind of stuff. But I think as you kind of grow up, you start realizing, okay, people are essentially kind of buying into you. They're buying into a service, be it voiceover, be it your acting ability, and you've got to present yourself in a particular way. And you can't do that unless you have a business structure. I think, I even say to myself a lot of the time, like, although I'm busy with work, I'm not always, my first job isn't always in there. Like that's the fun bit when you book the job, but everything else around it that keeps it going, like, the boring admin or the marketing or whatever it is, it's all of that stuff that keeps it going. So, yeah, I definitely think, and I think you have to be business minded nowadays because there are so many people out there. And I think part of business is marketing yourself and being unique and having like a unique standpoint. So yeah, I definitely 100%. Yeah.
So kind of based just on, calling yourself a business owner, can you share a specific moment when you knew your business was on the right track?
Oh, specific moment. I feel like one pivotal point was when social media blew up. And I remember that, like, there was a time where Facebook was creeping in. And, we had Facebook friends, and then there was a point where Instagram hit, LinkedIn hit, and it was like, okay, now you can be connected to lots of different people at the same time. And I think that opened it up because otherwise you're only really going into auditions or seeing people per job basis. And, you weren't really connecting with people outside of that. So I think that was one thing. And then I guess personally for myself, it was when I kind of like, I think it's kind of when I changed my mindset and I just kind of went for it. I think there's a point you get to in like a business or a creative career where you're like, I'm just going to put myself out there now, and this is what I really want to do, and I want people to see this. And I think when I had that switch mixed with the social media, I think, you know, you got seen by a lot more people, you got talking to a lot more people, and I guess I kind of made those connections that I didn't have when I first started that other people might have. So yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, I was going to just ask you about the mindset piece. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Like, how did you do that? What did you do to kind of change your mindset?
I think it. See, I guess it's quite gradual, right? You can't just kind of wake up and change your mindset. But I feel like there was a point where I guess you kind of feel like successes are coming to you, and then you kind of run with that momentum. So you're constantly not focused on, okay, I didn't get that audition. You kind of focus on the things that are working. And I think that's really important for a business as well. You start looking at, you've only got a certain amount of time in the day, and you start looking at what's working and what's not. And I think that's what it was. I think the positivity kind of came from the fact that I was like, oh, these things are actually working. Okay, people are noticing me for this, so I shall go do more of this. But I think mindset is in any creative business, be it musician, dancer, actor, whatever. It's so important because there's just so many backs and forths, and there's so many ebbs and flows. And I guess you guys know that too. And I think you've got to just constantly kind of believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing and keep pushing forward. And I think, I know it's going to sound really, really cheesy, but I remember there was one quote that always has stuck with me, which is, the people who aren't successful are basically the people who give up. So, you know, to be successful, you've just got to keep going. And I think that's really important. So yeah.
You've got, actually I noticed you've got a quote on your website. I don't know if that sort of ties in with that ethos, what you just spoke about being always learning. So, kind of being you. Do you want to? Yeah. I can't remember the exact phrasing now, but
that quote is so old. It's one of those things on the list where I'm like, is that quote still relevant? But yes, I know what you mean. It goes something like, "You'll always be learning until you retire," which we don't know what age that is going to be now. But you'll always be learning, and I think it's the idea of just being curious all the time. I had a tutor once who said that, like, the people that, you know, there's so much information, I think, out there, especially now. But I think if you stay curious and you just stay like wanting to learn and be like, okay, I might fail at this, but let's give it a go. Let's learn. And I think that's really, really important. That's a key mindset thing as well. And just, just to keep you from, I guess, getting bogged down with things that might not be working. But I think we always are learning. Again, that ties back to the people that you know nowadays. Like, I know for me, I have people in my connections that I never thought I could kind of connect with, but you learn so much from them, just being around them. Like, for example, even in Doctor Who, when I used to go in, you were like a little fish in a big pond, and you'd go in, but you'd learn so much from people around you, and you just kind of got to absorb it, ask questions, be curious. And I think that's kind of what I meant when I wrote that. So, yeah.
Yes, I think that's so interesting, isn't it, to running a business, because there's no right or wrong way. There's no kind of black and white rule book of this is how you're supposed to do things, and this is what it means.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Going on sort of, off the back of sort of turning points, what have you ever encountered any challenges or setbacks, and how might you have overcome them?
Challenges, setbacks. I think you got like little mini ones along the way, and that could be anything to do with not getting a job you wanted or landing an audition or whatnot. I do feel like for me, I think at the beginning, when I was first starting to work in London and I got my first agent, I think for me the biggest setback was there weren't as many opportunities for, say, people of our colour to go in. And I don't think that was necessarily, like, I don't want to be kind of talking obviously about that in depth, but there just weren't, there wasn't a system of writers, producers who were all coming from our background. So I think I found it quite hard because you felt a little bit distanced from the industry. You were only, some of my friends, they were going in auditioning 5 times a week, whereas I was only going in like once. And it was always hard to build that momentum. So I remember what I did do actually is I made some really cool friends from, they graduated from Brit School. Fun fact for you, I think they were the year below Adele. I can't remember where it was, but I remember connecting with them, and we started just creating work on our own. And we started making web series, and that was a time when YouTube was like up and coming. And then we used to like post it out to festivals everywhere and just get that together for our reels and then post that out to casting directors and things like that. So I think that was a big challenge. But I feel like people adapted to that and just kind of started to create their own work. So yeah, that definitely helped.
I think having social media, like you said before, that's really helpful, particularly in the career and the type of work that you're in, because you can actually, I guess, take control and actually share your message and who you are kind of on your own without kind of having, the institutions to kind of help you. Are you kind of doing anything or seeing anything now where, you mentioned that there are obviously more women of colour when you're auditioning, etc. Do you think that that's a sign of the times? Obviously, we've had Black Lives Matter. We've had so many big kind of movements happen in the world. Do you think that's kind of part of it as well? Because obviously now you turn on the TV and adverts are more representative, for example. So does that mean you get more opportunities now than you did, say, a few years ago?
I personally think so, yeah. I think people are always looking for diversity in any of the projects that I do, be that voice, be that on screen, be that adverts. I think people are. And at first, honestly, I was quite worried because I didn't want to be like a box ticker. I didn't want to feel that somebody was including me just because, But I soon started to find out that there was a whole different level of working collaboratively, across, having a whole diverse team, not just seeing somebody on screen or an advert on screen with diverse kind of, faces, actually having it from the core a team with people who speak different languages, who come from different production backgrounds, all of that helped. And I think when people started realizing, oh yeah, it makes a big difference everywhere, I think that was definitely a really, really key thing. So I do think all the movements help. I think it helps in having it's easier to now say, look, I want to create this because, or probably not easier, but you can kind of step out a little bit more confidently and say, look, I want to create this story because it means a lot to me and my culture and where I'm from. And people are willing to listen and people are willing to give that all important funding or time or focus on it. So yeah, I think it definitely helps, especially when it's something that's as large as kind of Black Lives Matter, where it's global and people are shifting globally rather than just, say within London or something like that.
And being able to share your culture, your story, I mean, that in itself is, a great and massive tick, really, isn't it? Well, how else do you kind of measure success? And what does success mean to you?
I try. This is going to sound like a really bad answer, but I try not to measure success. I try not to heavily measure it anyway. I try to kind of. I think when I was younger, I probably, if you asked me 5 years ago, I would say, oh, it's how many auditions I've gone to and how many things I've booked. But I think now it's more about how content and happy you feel after you've done each project. I really value the people who I work with, and it's the conversations you have outside of doing the job or the things you learn from each other. That's what's important. And I think the all important, or maybe the kind of crux of success is probably, and I think you guys probably agree, is balancing everything. I think if you can, when you have those days where you just do balance everything and you think, oh, I wish this could be every day. I feel like that's the, that's the peak of success right there. But in terms of measuring it, I try to ask myself, I've done this project, I've worked with these people. Am I really liking it? Do I like who I'm working with? What work they're doing or what work I'm doing? And I think if I can answer yes to that, then I'm like, yeah, that's success to me. And I think I don't know about you, but I feel like into this day and age, it's a lot of pressure to be forefront, at the forefront, be successful. And I feel like successes can happen in small little wins. And I think if you kind of embrace that, then it feels a little bit more doable to be successful, I think. So yeah.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it, I suppose, in your field particularly as well, because I wonder whether success is a measure on external factors like your profile and media but even so, more for even businesses these days, because I think we're kind of geared towards becoming creators and being in the online space, being seen, being heard, getting your voice out there. So I think there's an interesting element there into what other people perceive as success. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's a very personal measure for yourself. And
just something that kind of happened a little bit recently. So, for example, I did I still kind of do on and off, do sleep stories for Calm. And it was one of like my like favorite jobs to do over COVID, because there were so many people who were struggling to sleep, or, you know, feeling anxious or whatnot. And like, I would have thought that the success would have been getting that job, but actually the success were those small notes you get from people, because once they get posted, people can look at the author and, I'm sorry, not the author, narrator, and even the author, and kind of reach out to them and just say, oh, I really love that story. And there was one woman who must have messaged from across the pond, and she said, my daughter's really been struggling to sleep, and that one story you did just really got her to bed, and it like made me feel so relieved. And that's what you would call success, because you think, oh, you've actually reached one person somewhere who's probably just had that moment of relief, and that is awesome. And I think yeah, it's kind of like you said, it's perspective of success. How do you perceive it? You know, does it have to be big and kind of you know, under the lights or under the spotlight, or is it just those small things that you do? I'm making a good chapati as well.
Oh my God, that is so
counted as a success.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that is always like the ultimate pressure. It's like, forget everything else. How kind of fluffy are they?
Do you know, I'm so with you on that, Bhavnisha. That is like my life goal, to actually have a chapati that's round, that fluffs up, that does, you know, it's a process.
And the pile.
Yeah.
And the pile.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not just one. You've got to do 100.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's so funny. I think I'd do my mum proud if I ever made a perfect chapati.
There we go. That's it. That's goal number one. Yeah. But totally, I think it's about perspective, and I think it's about how much you. I think it's just about, I guess it's like a feeling successes. I think it's that warmth that you kind of get inside of you when you're like, okay, I've done something that might have been my own little goal, and now I've achieved it, and it doesn't have to mean anything to anyone else. So yeah.
And, you know, kind of with that, do you think your personal brand is important in your field? And what do you do to kind of think about what your personal brand is?
So I definitely do. Like, kind of going back to what we said about being a business, I think especially during COVID, there were a lot of influx of voice actors because we weren't working as actors for such a long time. And I think when that happened, people had to really start thinking about branding, because there were so many different voices. How do you make your voice stand out? How do you make your service stand out, and the way you work, the type of equipment that you have, and whatever it might be? It's like, how do you stand out? And also I feel like nowadays, you know, especially like myself, you're doing a lot of kind of, say, business over the internet. So you have to almost streamline your whole personality into a little box and then put it onto the internet, and then hope that someone can get a whole glimpse of who you are very, very quickly. So I think that's where branding comes into play, because it kind of trains you to always have that, what is the essence of me, you know, like, you know, at the forefront. So yeah, I definitely think that it's definitely important, more so now than ever. And also, and I actually enjoy it. I think at first I was a bit like, you know, I remember like answering kind of questionnaires and stuff, trying to find out about what my personality is like, what's my style, and then after a while you start looking at it thinking, okay, let's not overcomplicate this. You know, what is it that means a lot to me? What work am I trying to create? And kind of connecting with people who have the same values. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think values is a really big thing, especially when it comes to personal branding, because you're connecting with another person essentially. You can't really pretend to be someone you're not either. So it's kind of
that's very true. Yeah. I totally agree with you on that. And I think as well, it's about being vulnerable. You know, I think once you start kind of saying about small things like, it's okay to fail, or I have failed and this is how far I've got. I always try to keep in mind, it's not about kind of perfection, it's about the progress. And I think people actually enjoy seeing progress more than perfection. So for me, like, I think that it's definitely
people
important.
like to see that kind of peek behind the scenes and kind of, you know, reality, because obviously we get fed all this stuff on Instagram, and, you know, who knows what's true and what's not. So sometimes, you know, keeping it real can definitely help to engage with people. Talk to us a bit more about how you market yourself. What's worked well? What do you do to kind of market yourself? You mentioned social media before. What else do you do?
Back in the day before COVID, I remember I used to go to a lot of networking events. Being in London, there's always something going on. I remember the BFI was quite like a mixing hub for people. They'd always have events Friday night, Saturday night. So, and you'd go and support people's shows, like if they had a screening there and things like that, and you'd meet up with people. It's quite sad actually now, because we don't do that as much anymore. Like people are usually like, oh, I'll just email you, or check out this on the website or whatnot. So I do feel like social media does take away from that, but I do try to get down to like events at least like once a month, just so you can see people in person and stuff like that. But the other thing is mainly social media. That actually I have to say definitely is social media. Posting, keeping on top of mind, people's connections and your connections. You just don't realize how small the world is, and you're like, oh my God, I worked with that person and da da da. I was thinking actually before we jumped on to talk about, like, back in the day, I don't really remember doing this, but like when you used to meet somebody, you used to have a look at their Facebook profile and be like, how many mutual contacts have we got? It feels like that now, but in a business sense, it kind of feels like, oh my God, you work with that person. Okay, I have a connection with that person. So I think that LinkedIn has obviously blown up a lot recently as well. I think that is definitely somewhere where I've connected with a lot of producers and stuff, mainly because a lot of us are freelancers, so we're always on there kind of moving from job to job. So that rotation, you can almost connect with people there. The other way to market is silly little things, actually, when like things like merchandise, or, just small little things like sending people gifts and stuff like that. People who are quite, you value a lot. You obviously do it with a pure heart, but I think I'm a bit old fashioned. I'm quite old school, where if I can write a letter to somebody or like a card, I'd rather do that. So sometimes when it gets to like Christmas or something, 10 people I've worked with the most throughout the year, I'll write them a card or something like that. And without you realizing that is kind of marketing, because you're keeping on top of their minds. So yeah. So lots of different things. I think to maybe give a more general answer, it is about doing lots of different things. And I think not one way will just kind of get you noticed or get you business or whatnot. It's kind of, it's also what works for you as well. If you don't feel comfortable writing someone a letter, then don't do it. But it's that
definitely.
kind of thing.
Do you have your own merch?
Yeah. What I did? I had started and I did like the general thing of like having like a pen or a pencil, and then I thought the other day I was like, I need to do something. I've been brainstorming, so I haven't got anything. Like I was thinking of swag bags or things like, because I know a lot of girls, even if you just have one of those kind of canvas bags, but I was going to try and do maybe something on a t-shirt. I wear quite a lot of like sports gear, and I love my like plain tees. So I was going to do like maybe different colors with, you've been back.
Sign us up.
Something weird like that. But I had a friend who did it in America. And I tell you, no word of a lie, and obviously it's still potluck as well or whatnot, but he went to go and buy a car at a brand dealer, and in America, automotive VO is massive. Like, they have so many automotive places, come and buy your Honda, or whatever it is. And he walked in with a VO top on, like he had his name and brand on it. And the guy must have, when he bought the car, said to him, oh, he looked at the back of his shirt, and he was like, you're a voiceover? He was like, yeah. He goes, funnily enough, we're looking for a voiceover for our, for our brand. Now there, you've got to remember, when you one automotive company, even if it's across just in one state, they usually have 50 of them. And then he became like a resident VO to do all their ads, and like it was just like crazy. And I was just like, that is maybe why I want to buy a tea. But it's I don't know, like just small things that kind of, I guess, remind others of you, but are also quite cute. Like, I don't know, I just love cute things. Like if it's like someone got me like a mini pencil, I would never use it, but I would always like keep it. I have the most, you can't see it, but I have like these little things that I just got from like where I've traveled, and I just keep them. Oh, this is the funniest.
That's so cool.
Someone gave me that.
Brilliant.
when I went out for a Doctor Who convention, somebody gave me that, and I was just like, I'll keep that.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great, and I'll remember them forever. But I think it's just that, it's the small things that, and again, coming back to branding, it's like what makes you happy. Like I would get something that makes me happy, and then I'd give that to somebody else. So yeah, it's just finding that. But merch pending.
Love that. We're here for the merch. We love all merch chat.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, keep us
You're
posted.
saying that with the VO tops then.
Yeah, can't wait to see that.
100%.
Yeah, I love it. I love that idea. How do you stay motivated, Bhavnisha, as a freelance?
I want to say coffee, but I don't think I can. No, I think, I don't know. I feel like it's about, again, it's about mindset. I feel more than anything, more so to do with keeping positive and whatnot. But I feel like it's very much about like doing something and then going, yeah, that's working. And I think when you have that and you build that momentum, you definitely feel motivated. And I feel like keeping yourself surrounded with people, by people who are very similar to you and quite positive. And I'm quite like energetic, and I'm quite like, I don't sit still. Like my husband would say, I don't sit still. I can't sit still for more than 5 minutes. So for me, like being around those kind of people who are like energy givers, like I feel like when you're around those kind of people who share the same values, you're constantly, make sure you're in Facebook groups or on, reading people's stories who are like that. And I think when you do that, like subconsciously, you're constantly just motivated. And I think that when I was younger, my family was somebody, like they were people who kept me motivated right the way through to when I got married, my husband, again, it's about people around you. But I feel for me, and this is one thing I've learned more recently, is taking like moments just for yourself. Like I like to wake up quite early in the morning when there's like maybe nobody awake, and just have 10 minutes to myself before like the craziness of the day starts. And I've tried to do that a lot, be it like not necessarily doing meditation in the morning, but just having a breather and then kind of like just then jumping into the day. And then exercise as well. Like I will go to the gym every day. So for me, it's about like just having that even if it's just half an hour, like just having that half an hour of just blowing steam and getting your kind of mind and your body, like in sync, if that makes sense. So lots of things and coffee, but yeah, a lot of coffee. Become a coffee drinker since COVID. So yeah. But yeah, I think it's a bunch of stuff. And I think for me, it was about doing stuff for myself to keep myself motivated, but also having people around you that are kind of like almost like in the background motivated, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Totally with you on the morning routine. I think I started that in COVID because I was able to get up before everybody else. And there was no school to work or anything. It's different now because everybody gets up earlier. But just having that time to yourself, it's quiet, no one's interrupting you, and exercise as well became something. It was a few years ago. I think I made a commitment to myself and said, no matter what, it doesn't matter how busy I am, I'm going to fit it in the mornings. And I think because it just makes me feel better. I don't know if...
Yeah. 100%. I think it clears your mind. And I think, I don't know, I read something as well, actually. I don't know whether I'm misreading, but there was something about the idea of, I guess anything you do in the morning, it sets your body up for the rest of the day. So like what you put into your body in the first thing in the morning, what you do with your body first thing in the morning. I try not to check my phone now. Like I try to have my alarm clock on here so that when I don't have to look at my phone. It's so difficult because you are thinking, I've got to get on with this, and has that person emailed me? But I think having that 10 minutes when you're just not doing anything and letting your body know it's okay, like you don't have to be on your phone. I think that's definitely important. Yeah,
that's so helpful. And I think we instantly, like as soon as your eyes open, it's like literally you reach for your phone. So to be able to stop yourself from doing that, hats off to you, because sometimes it's like the first thing I grab for. And
I'm not going to lie, I don't do it every day. Like there are some days where I know I've got to be on my phone first thing in the morning because I'm waiting for an email, or even if, like I say, if I'm up early, I know if I'm working with somebody from America and they're going to still be awake because it's still like late at night. I'm like, I need to catch them before they sleep, or you're constantly always thinking about that. But I think the days that you don't do it, I think it does make a real difference. Yeah.
So a lot of our listeners are either business owners themselves, maybe they're considering starting their own businesses. We just wondered if you could share some advice that you felt has helped you, and maybe something that they can take back and try in their own businesses.
Yeah, sure. I think from like a mindset perspective, the quicker you start believing in yourself, like only time can tell you this. Like if I went back to my younger self, I was just like, it's all going to be all right. Just believe in yourself. It's all going to be good. I think having that belief in yourself, and creating it for yourself. If you don't have people around you who nurture that kind of environment for you, then definitely like find ways to create it, you know, for yourself. I think definitely, definitely focus on branding. Definitely focus on, ask yourself, if, you know, as a business, you have, like, I guess, a core service, but also looking at everything around that. Like, how are you going to, you know, appear on social media? What kind of events are you going to be at? What, how's your admin going to run? You know, have you got time to make sure you do stuff? So I think it's about the boring bits as well. I say admin's boring, but I guess it is. But you know what I mean? It's about building that plan. So having like a loose business plan and knowing, okay, I really want to do this by then, and then work back from there. However, I've just read a recent article saying that, I'm going to throw a bit of controversy in here, but like, you shouldn't really be setting goals. And it's like, okay. But there was a whole idea of like setting loose goals, basically, because obviously the world changes so much. So having an idea of, you know, where you want to get to, but kind of submitting to the fact that it might not be the way that you were going to get there, and stuff like that. But I think the other advice would probably be, or the other piece of advice would be, to going back to what we said before, just really finding communities that you like, that you really jive with, like, you know, be it a Facebook group, or be it people in your own community or family or whoever. I just thought it was, when I started noticing, when I started hanging out with people or whatnot who had the same values, it was just a bit of an eye-opener, because you're just constantly motivated, or you're constantly kind of being pushed in the right direction, or the direction you're wanting to go in. So I think that's really, really important. So
just on that as well, because you know, we have had some feedback from some listeners around confidence and actually walking into these spaces. Obviously people are out and about doing much more face-to-face networking than before. Can you give any advice on kind of, you know, how do you project yourself when you go into a room? Can you give some advice to our listeners on kind of how to do that?
Yeah, sure. So I think the first thing is, and I remember this from my audition days, because a tutor once told me, never walk into an audition and be like, sorry, or have that apology feeling inside of you. If you want to take a chair and you want to sit down and you want to make the space your own, do it. Like, you know, there's no kind of, there's no right or wrong. But I think that's one thing. When you walk into a room, smile. Take a breath if you need to take a breath. If you don't always need to, and I guess this is advice for myself, but you don't always need to be talking first off. You know, you can be an observer. You don't have to, don't do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. Like always think, lean into something. So if you walk into a room and somebody starts talking to you, but you're not too comfortable, don't feel like you have to fill the gap and make too much conversation. Let things just naturally breathe. I think that's what's really, really important. And when you walk into a room as well, never kind of going with that mindset of, well, that person won't care, or that might not mean as much to them. Like, kind of without obviously being too egotistical, have the just confidence in your own beliefs. So if there's something you're really passionate about, but you think no one's going to want to hear about that, I'm guaranteeing you they want to hear about that. So I think it's always just about chin up, smile, and breathe. Like, you know, that kind of idea. But that's kind of a physical, I guess.
Thank you. That's really helpful advice. And coming obviously from an actor, you know, I think we will definitely be giving that a go. Definitely the next event that we go to. Yeah,
definitely. Some really good tips there, aren't there? Especially around mindset as well. Do you have any sort of resources that have helped you along your business journey that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I tend to read a book a kind of month. I like to, but even then, when you get the time, you dip in and out. There were a couple of books that I read. Personality is Not Permanent. I think I just posted that. Well, it's National Book Month, isn't it? Someone reminded me that. Yeah, somebody reminded me that the other day. I was like, oh, brilliant. But there was, I'm just going to get it up because I don't know. I can't remember exactly. Personality Isn't Permanent. That was a really good book because it was about how you can almost limit yourself by putting yourself in a box and just being, I think nowadays you have to be quite fluid and agile with the way you are and changing, not your personality or changing exactly who you are, but just like understanding yourself on a bit of a deeper level. I think that one helped me because as an actor, you're just always trying to, even as a voice actor, you're always trying to dig deep for emotions and find the layers of yourself. And I think that book definitely does that. There was another, there's a book, there's an author that I actually do like, Mark Manson. Have you heard of Mark Manson?
Rings a bell.
He's got a really, unfortunately, he has a rude word in all of his books.
I think I know. He's got one on Netflix now as well, the show, the book.
I feel like he does, but that book was awesome. It was called
I know the topic. Yeah.
And the reason that book was really good is because the chapters are so digestible. Like, I know I've dipped in and out of that book like quite a bit, and again, you're probably getting the flavour of who I am. Like, I think a lot of it's built on mindset, and his approach is very interesting because it's all about kind of like accepting kind of like that the world is a bit, it's a bit tough, and actually how you navigate through that, especially like, and I think he's taken out a new edition as well. So, and there's lots in that series from him. So definitely check that one out. And and I listen to a lot of TEDx talks as well. Mm-hmm. And again, not necessarily for the mindset stuff, but even just for like, sometimes I'll click on something that I don't even know anything about, and I'll just literally delve into it for 15 minutes. And that's probably a kind of a habit for voiceovers, because you're always supposed to be reading stuff you don't know because you need to get comprehension quite fast. But I sometimes do that, and you just come across stuff, and you come across people, and you're like, oh, this is really interesting. And it's that curiosity, keeping your mind open. So for me, I think, and again, they're easily digestible. They're like 15 minutes. So you can just kind of whack one on in the background and listen to it. So, yeah. Give those a go.
Yeah, I think I have that little bit of that creativity sort of side as well. I don't know if you both have that as well, but sometimes just doing something completely different to what you normally do, or anything that it just sort of opens up your mind, doesn't it, to new ideas potentially.
Yeah, and another really great thing as well, because one thing I noticed when I'm not necessarily standing up in there, or I'm editing or sending emails, I'm sat down for such a long time. So after a while, I try to set like either a mental timer or like a physical timer, and I'll just get up and move as much as I can for 10 minutes. And I think it really does help, because you just kind of, you see different things. Because I think once you're just in this kind of funnel of looking at a screen, you just forget, oh, there's a door over there, or there's this over here. So I think just getting up and kind of wandering around and giving yourself that break, that's really, really important as well.
It's funny, isn't it, when you move or do something different, and if you're trying to solve a problem or trying to do something, that's often when that idea or you get that kind of moment of creativity comes to you, because you're not bogged down in, like you said, sitting physically and kind of, focusing on one thing. So great recommendations there. We'll definitely check out those books. So final question from us. What are your future plans for the business? What's kind of, 2024, as we're almost there, and kind of beyond, what does that kind of look like for you?
For me, it's just about continuing to grow, more so with the voiceover work and with the radio presenting. Even at the moment and you probably can tell again what I kind of am about, like the show that we've got is the Chill Show on BBC Asia Network, and it's about kind of embracing positivity. It's about just being in a very good mood, because I suppose nowadays it can be a bit difficult to be in a good mood all the time. And for me, I think it's about growing that. So I want to, I've now recently got myself into more gaming work and more character work. So I want to continue going in that direction. During COVID, I was able to connect with the booth with a lot more different countries, people in different countries. So continue doing that. So I think it's about kind of continuing to do that and continuing to kind of like hone in my brand. I do need to do a bit of a rebrand myself as well. Although I love certain things, I'm looking at certain things thinking, I really want to change that. And then something else crops up and you just don't have the chance to do it. But I think continuing with that. And just like continuing to kind of, I guess, like champion a little bit that, looking back, how much I've kind of probably achieved in like 10 years. My niece now kind of is quite creative, and if she ever kind of wanted to go into anything, it's nice to know that she's got like somebody to, I guess, look up to and ask questions to. So so continue doing that.
Love that. Paying it back. I think it's so important, isn't it, sometimes to just give the kind of next generation a leg up, because for some of us, we didn't have that. So to be able to do that, I love that. I think that's such a brilliant idea and thing to do. Yeah. Well, Bhavnisha, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your business journey. We'll share your social handles so people can follow you. And you can listen to Bhavnisha every Monday at 10 p.m. on BBC Asian Network's Chill Show. We'll be tuning in next week. And Bhavnisha, thank you again for being so generous with your time and advice for our listeners. And we wish you all the best for the remainder of 2023. And that's it for episode 8. Thank you once again for joining us. We'll be back next month with our series finale episode. It's going to be a good one. Until then, stay connected with the Courageous Collective by following us on Instagram. We're at the _Courageous Collective. And if you're interested in joining us for season 2, get in touch. We're looking for incredible women of colour who are daring to do things differently in their creative businesses. If that's you or someone you know, let us know. Thanks and take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. The Courageous Collective is created by Rupa Bharadwaj and Vardeep Edwards. We really appreciate your feedback, so please like, share and follow us. Please also subscribe to receive an alert for our next episode.
You can find out where to follow us on social media in the show notes. And if you'd like to be a future guest, please do get in touch. Thanks and see you soon.